Picture this. It's February 1957. Cold. Gray. A man's walking through the woods near Susquehanna Road in Philadelphia. He's just looking for some peace and quiet.
Yeah.
Maybe a break from the city. But what he finds, chilling, a bassinet box. Just sitting there, abandoned among the trees. Now, curiosity gets the better of him. He peeks inside. And what he sees, it's going to haunt him and the entire city for decades.
I bet.
Inside the box, wrapped in a faded plaid blanket, lies the body of a young boy, small, maybe 4 or 6 years old. Delicate features, and a recent haircut.
A haircut?
Yeah, haircut. But it looks hasty, almost like someone was trying to, I don't know, erase his identity or something.
Oh, wow.
This discovery in this unremarkable patch of woods, this is the beginning of a mystery that, well, it continues to grip us today. The mystery of the boy in the box.
Right.
Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Now, this boy's body, found on February 25th, 1957, it showed signs of a brutal end. Severe head trauma. Probably inflicted deliberately.
So this wasn't an accident?
No. This was a crime. And yet, even after all these years, decades of investigation, his identity, his story, remains a heartbreaking unknown.
It's incredible, isn't it? The most perplexing part of this case, for me, is the lack of a starting point. I mean, who was this boy? Where did he come from?
It really is baffling.
The police, they launched a huge investigation. Hundreds of thousands of flyers with the boy's picture, hoping anyone would recognize him. They checked missing children reports, contacted orphanages. They even, and this was unheard of at the time, they put the boy's photo on gas bills.
Wow. Desperate times, desperate measures, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like he just appeared out of thin air, only to vanish just as quickly, leaving behind nothing but questions and heartbreak.
A real ghost story, almost.
Almost. And to add to that, fingerprints, footprints. Nothing matched any records. No one came forward to claim him. It's almost like he only existed in those few tragic days before he was found.
And that, of course, must have made the investigation a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. A nightmare.
But there were clues, though, right? Tell me about the blanket, the hat, that strange haircut we talked about, these little details. Do they offer any hope in all this darkness?
Well, the blanket, even though it was mass-produced, it could only be traced back to manufacturers in North Carolina or Quebec. So a lead, yes, but a very broad one. The hat, however, that presented a much more interesting possibility. It was a blue corduroy cap, custom-made.
So unique.
Right, unique, which means it wasn't something you'd see every day. And get this, the hat maker, the one who actually made it, he remembered the buyer.
He did?
Yeah, a blonde man. Maybe 26 to 30 years old. But, and this is the frustrating part, they never found him.
Ugh, so close. It's like taking one step forward and then 2 steps back. Like these clues were almost teasing the investigators, offering a glimpse of a solution, but never revealing the full picture.
It's true.
And what about that haircut? I always found that to be such a strange detail.
The haircut. Oh, that's one of the most analyzed parts of this whole case. The way it was done, so hastily, unevenly, it suggests something more than just a simple trim. Some experts think, and it's a chilling thought, that it was done to disguise the boy's appearance.
Wow. Like another layer of tragedy on top of an already heartbreaking story? To think that someone would try to erase the very features that made this child unique, as if to, strip him of his identity even in death.
Yeah, it's awful.
Chilling. And it really speaks to maybe just how malicious this whole thing was, right? I mean, we're not just talking about some random act here. Whoever did this, they went to a lot of trouble to hide what they did, and I assume their connection to the boy.
You're absolutely right. And it's that calculated effort that's fueled so many of the theories that have sprung up about this case.
Ah, yes, the theories. This case has to have more theories than almost any other I can think of. Each one trying to piece together the little bits of information we have, to try and explain how this innocent child ended up abandoned in that box.
And it's like each theory is another path in this giant labyrinth of a case, and each one seems to raise more questions than it answers.
So where do we even begin with all this? Which theory makes the most sense? What can these different perspectives tell us about this case and about that time period when it happened?
Well, one of the most talked about theories is the foster home theory. A lot of that comes from Remington Bristow, investigator who spent years on this case.
Bristow. Wasn't he the one who had the boy's body exhumed back in the 90s for DNA testing? He really seemed dedicated to solving this.
That's the one. And he was pretty convinced that the boy's death, even though it was awful, was probably an accident. Maybe neglect or something happened and then it got covered up.
Makes sense.
His theory was all about this foster home nearby. He thought maybe the boy was placed there illegally, and then when he died, they hid it to avoid, I don't know, trouble.
Yeah, especially back then. Unwed mothers,
Oh.
children born out of wedlock. There was a lot of judgment. Not many options.
Exactly. And people would do a lot to protect themselves, their reputations, even if it meant keeping a tragedy quiet.
It's a sad thought, but probably true.
It is. The foster home theory, well, it was never really proven. But it does show a darker side to that time.
For sure.
But of course, there are other theories, and some are much more unsettling.
Like the Martha confession. That one always creeps me out.
Oh, yeah, Martha. She came forward in the 90s, claimed she saw the boy being abused, and then she saw him die at the hands of her own mother.
No way. Really?
Yeah. She said her mother bought the boy for, almost nothing, wanted to raise him with her other kids.
Well, he was an object.
Yeah, it's awful. And her story gets even worse. She said her mother would beat the boy, emotionally abuse him, and in the end, she beat him to death while he was taking a bath.
I can't even imagine. But if that's true, why wait so long to tell someone? Why not go to the police right away?
Well, Martha said she was too afraid of her mother, scared of what she'd do. She said she only felt safe enough to talk after her mother died.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But even though some things she said did line up with the evidence, it never really checked out.
Right. No one else backed up her story. And there were questions about her mental health, too. But it's still a possibility, And it makes you think about the things that could be happening behind closed doors, even in families that seem normal.
That's true. You never really know what's going on with people.
Nope. And then, of course, there's the trafficking theory. This one's all about a bigger, more organized crime ring being involved.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Like, this little boy wasn't just the victim of one bad person, but maybe part of something much bigger and more sinister.
Right. This theory started gaining traction later on in the investigation because there was just no information about where the boy came from, and some things people said pointed in that direction. Maybe he was trafficked, sold. That would explain why no one reported him missing, why his fingerprints weren't on file, why he seemed to, appear out of nowhere.
That's scary.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
Not at all. It's a sad reality. Child trafficking happens, and it often happens where you least expect it. People exploiting kids and leaving behind a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions.
And the boy in the box, with all the mystery around him, almost becomes a symbol of that, right? Of the kids who vanish, whose stories we never hear.
I think so.
It's heavy stuff. And it makes you think about the bigger issues that let these things happen. So we have all these theories, each one trying to explain the boy's life and how he died. But do you think one is more likely than the others? Or are we just stuck guessing forever?
It's really hard to say, which one is the most likely. They all have their good points and bad points. And without more solid evidence, well, it's tough to rule any of them out completely. But what this case shows us, even with all the mystery and how complicated it is how far we've come with forensics and investigations.
You mean like DNA technology?
Yeah.
And forensic genealogy, all that stuff that wasn't around back in the 50s.
Exactly. They actually exhumed the boy's body twice.
Right.
Once in '98 and then again in 2019 to try and get DNA. We don't know the full results yet, but investigators are using, that genealogy stuff to try and find any family connections. It's a long shot and it takes time, but it's hope. Maybe we can finally give this little boy his name back, find out where he came from, maybe even find out who did this to him.
So after all this time, all the dead ends, there's still a chance this case could be solved.
There's always a chance. And that's what's so amazing about cold cases, right? They push us to keep looking for answers, even when it feels like there's nowhere left to look. And sometimes it's the tiniest thing, a little detail, that breaks the whole case wide open.
It's inspiring, really. All these investigators, the professionals, and even just people who are interested in the case, they won't let it be forgotten.
Yeah.
And it speaks to something deeper, I think, that human need for justice, to speak up for those who can't,
Yeah.
to make sure those who've been forgotten are remembered.
I agree. And the boy in the box, even though we don't know his name, he's become a symbol of that. That picture of him, so innocent, it's a reminder that kids are vulnerable and we have to do everything we can to protect them.
It's true, but his story, even though it's so sad, it's also about hope, isn't it? The hope that someday the truth will come out, that justice will be served, and that this boy, once we know his name and his story, he won't just be another victim. He'll be a symbol of resilience, a reminder that people never give up on the truth.
I like that. And thinking bigger, this case shows us how important it is to keep researching, keep making forensics better. Every cold case that gets solved, every mystery that gets figured out, it brings us closer to a world where hopefully these things happen less, where justice is easier to get, and where we remember those who are lost by not just remembering them, but by fighting to find out what happened to them.
Absolutely. And I think it's time for us to do what we always do at the end of a deep dive.
Oh, I like this part.
Give our listeners a challenge, a way to keep the conversation going.
What do you have in mind for this one?
Well, we've talked about DNA and all that, but sometimes the answer is in people's memories. So, to everyone listening, we're asking, do you remember anything about this?
Were you in Philadelphia back in the 50s? Did you see something that seemed off? Hear any rumors? Maybe know a family that moved away suddenly and it seemed strange.
Even if it's small, a name, a face, anything, it could be the piece that's missing.
So if anything at all sounds familiar, reach out. Tell us what you remember. You can find us on our website, social media, or you can contact the police directly.
You never know. What you have to say could be what solves this. It could be what gives this boy his name back, what brings closure to this mystery after all these years. And it would make sure his story, even though it started with something terrible, ends up showing the power of hope, justice, and people working together to find the truth.
Don't forget to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel, too. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.